All right, council, let's get started. We're running a little late. The November 11th special meeting City Council is now in session. You have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes to the agenda? I'd like to propose that we do a very short executive session after item D to discuss negotiations. John, do you have the magic incantation, please?
Move that following the meeting, the special meeting, that we go into executive session under 24-6-4024 for the purpose of develop negotiating positions and strategy and consulting with our attorney on specific legal questions.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session for legal advice and negotiations. Any discussion? Has to pass by 5. All in favor, please raise your hands.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion's approved.
Thank you. So we're missing Jim. That's right, Jim's not
Jim's
here
out
tonight.
of town.
He's out of town. He told me. Okay, first item is overview of mental health system.
Yeah, council, the first item tonight is not an action item. This is just an information session for you. And with the cover memo that we sent out, as you saw it, when council authorized the staff to submit a grant, $22,500 grant for the CDBG program for, I think, the 4th year of the Doctors Care Integrated Initiative program in partnership with Arapahoe Douglas Community Health. We had some council members ask questions about getting a little bit of a broader overview of what was going on in the community, what were the interactions, particularly between Arapahoe Community Health and the police department. So I have invited some people here tonight and put some information in the packet for you. Let me just introduce B.B. Kleinman, who's the Executive Director of Doctors Care, Scott Tempe, who's the Executive Director of Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health, obviously all of you know Chief Coogan, and then Sergeant Cindy Mitchell, a sergeant in our police department, but Cindy also happens to be the CIT coordinator, what we call the Critical Incident Team coordinator. She makes that coordination between us, Littleton Police Department, and the training that takes place at Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health for these officers. And there's a description in there about this training of trying to deal with mentally ill persons. This is really a growing problem in the law enforcement arena. And then finally, we put for your information a piece that I thought you'd find interesting on the upcoming, sometime in 2009, the 18th Judicial District will establish a mental health court. And so there's a description of that. What I thought I would do, usually we'd have people come up to the table, but with the microphone situation, is maybe it'd be easier. I asked Will to just keep this as a kind of a portable mic. So if you have questions, any kind of introductory issues, then I'll just hand it to you.
And we've got Tom's extra one, too.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's true, too. So maybe we've got one from Jim, so we could share that. So I guess just to start out, in terms of Doctors Care, would you like to have a few introductory comments from BB?
Sure, please.
So BB, why don't you just come on up, and then we'll just kind of shuttle here with the mics, and BB just kind of hit the highlights, and particularly the position that we funded, that the council has authorized, and we funded through CDBG.
Can you put the microphone on, please? I'm sorry.
Is that okay? Well, Doctors Care provides health care to low-income uninsured patients in Arapahoe and Douglas counties, and Elbert County, too. And we started about 4 years ago, we started talking about the challenge that many of our uninsured medical patients had in getting mental health services. because they were low income. And so we kind of had a brainstorming session, and what we started with was Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health Network placed a mental health provider at Doctors Care, funded by CDBG. And it just evolved over the last couple of years to be more efficient financially and for Doctors Care to be able to take on more patients, to have the mental health provider as an employee of Doctors Care. So we expanded the program. We went from 2 to 4 appointments, Littleton resident appointments in a week, to whatever is needed, 20 to 25 appointments a week. Not only Littleton residents, but all Arapahoe
So, Beatty,
County.
just for clarification, I think a couple of council members may be under the impression that Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health had actually pulled funding.
No.
What you're saying is that really the administration, it always started out as CDBG, and then
Right.
For whatever administrative purposes,
Right.
you picked it up.
Right.
Okay.
No, it never felt like Arapahoe Douglas pulled funding. It just was more efficient because we had then the provider in-house, and then we could expand services. It was also a way for us to look for other funding for this program outside of CDBG. So it costs a lot more for us to provide integrated health care. And what integrated health care is, and this is an important piece of this, is the person has to have medical issues in addition to mental health issues. If they need just mental health issues, then we refer them, or we encourage them to stay with Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health. And I feel that they do the same thing. If they have patients who have medical issues, then it's just more efficient. The program evolved because, as most of you know, healthcare has become challenging for lots of people. Lots more people have become uninsured. And what we try to do is support our local physicians and the hospitals within our system who donate care to our patients. And the patient has become a lot more complicated in the last couple years. Just their needs are a lot more challenging. And so by supporting the physician, by providing additional services like mental health care to the patient, it allows the physician to do what they do best, and then and the patient to work efficiently through the system. So I don't know if that's what you wanted, but the partnership between Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health, Doctors Care, and many other service providers in our community make it possible for us to kind of reduce the barriers of care that we face.
So is the mental health provider that you have funded by Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health?
No, it's we use the CDBG funds for a portion of what it costs to have them, and then we gain funding from other sources.
Did they used to fund it?
No, Arapahoe, it was always it initially started with CDBG funds.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions for Beatty? Okay.
Gosh, that was.
Let's just move in. Yeah, thank you, Beatty. I wanted to just touch on, because particularly Mayor Clark, you had said that you were interested, and I think other members of council expressed this to me, just the overall interaction between mental health services and LPD. So either Scott or maybe Sergeant Mitchell, whichever one you want to start with. Can you start with the CIT?
Sure, and how that affects Arapahoe County Jail also.
Okay. Who wants to, Scott, you want to start?
Happy to
Maybe
talk,
Sergeant
if you'd
Mitchell
like.
we can just talk a little bit about specifically the Littleton program.
Would you like me to talk specifically about CIT first?
Sure, please.
Well, let me tell you first what it is. And my name is Scott Temke with the Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health Network. CIT is essentially a law enforcement training program. It's pretty intensive. It's 40 hours straight. So an officer is off the street in training for 40 hours. It began in 1987, so it's not new. They, in Memphis, Tennessee, discovered, as we have nationwide, that individuals with acute mental illness were dying on the street. They were creating pretty tense situations in the community. Law enforcement would respond, and those situations would quickly escalate into situations where someone got hurt or someone got jailed. The spirit of CIT training is to essentially allow police officers to de-escalate those situations rather than escalate them. So the object is to get people into mental health services and point them away from our jails, Arapahoe County Jail particularly, where we average about 5 times the cost for a mentally ill individual in the jail than a normal person, and 5 times the length of stay for those individuals. So CIT is an effort to keep people on the streets, keep people out of jail, and provide mental health services for them. Littleton's been one of the most participatory agencies that we've had. Them in Arapahoe County have now served, I believe, 69 people over the last year and gotten them directed to mental health services rather than the jails. 69, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Jim? Yeah. So it's working. One of the things we discovered is that it was pretty silly to put law enforcement on the streets diverting people from jails, directing them to mental health services if there were no mental health services available. One of the biggest gaps in our continuum is services for people that have no other means to pay for that care. We don't have the money. So we get, our agency is about $18.7 million of revenue per year. About 1.8 million of that is for people that can't afford it, the medically indigent individuals. So we needed funding for that. We went out, we got it from private foundations, Caring for Colorado, the Colorado Health Foundation, etc., provided funding for community-based mental health services, and we built on that over the last 3 years and have actually picked up on that funding through various municipalities and county funding. So Arapahoe County, Douglas County, City of Littleton, Greenwood Village, Sheridan, Lone Tree, and Castle Rock have all ended up and put dollars toward the provision of mental health services for those folks identified in the community that are acutely mentally ill and would otherwise have gone to jail settings. So we're diverting a fair amount of expense. Now that's, if you'd like me to say a word, Jim, about the mental health court, I can.
Why don't you go ahead and just segue on into that, since that'll be coming online in 09.
It's another piece of the effort to divert people from the jails where it's extremely expensive. We're spending anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 per year to keep someone in jail. I believe the average length of stay for an individual in Arapahoe County Jail who has a significant mental illness is around 120 to 130 days. The average is 32.8 days. So that's about 5 times the amount at about 25% more cost per day. So the county said essentially time out. We're spending too much money on these individuals. Let's put some dollars to a sort of court that will divert those individuals before they get sentenced and put into jail. So the mental health court would essentially be magistrate overseen and divert people to mental health services in the community with the leverage of the court behind it. So the magistrate can require that there be a treatment plan and services provided to that individual with the leverage that they follow through on that.
So do they mandate them to you?
They mandate to the individual that's charged with the felony that they follow through with the mental health services.
And who provides the mental health services?
We do.
You do, okay.
We do, yeah. Now we're still looking for funding for that. So we're chatting with the Arapahoe County Sheriff. We're looking for grant dollars. We've already gotten federal government burn grant dollars to fund the coordinative aspect of that. So we've hired an attorney who is putting together essentially the model and the oversight for that project. And they're working with Carol Chambers, Chief Judge Sylvester, Grayson Robinson, the sheriff in Arapahoe County, to put together a full system of a mental health court. Pretty excited about it.
And Scott, remind me, we chatted about this, but does Jefferson County have a court only for juveniles?
Correct. Correct.
So
Very small court.
will this be the first one for adults in Colorado?
This would be the first adult mental health court in Colorado.
Okay, I thought that
Correct.
was it. Okay.
The one in Jefferson County is pretty small scale, but very effective. So I believe they serve anywhere from 10 to 20 juveniles on an annual basis and divert them to services rather than juvenile detention centers. We're estimating that we can save the Arapahoe County Jail in the vicinity of $1.4 million if you look at the cost and cost of the services that they receive in the community. So, you know, it's hard to make the argument if you can't shut down a unit at the jail. So you got to go a long way to be able to tell the sheriff and the county commissioners that yes, we can shut down a unit, but we know that there's at least $1.5 million of jail time that they're providing that they won't have to. And these are particularly challenging individuals that take a great deal of the personnel's time. So they're invested, they're committed, and we're working together on the steering committee to put that court together.
If you save them $1.4 million, it's going to cost you something to deal with those people. Hopefully less than 1.4, but
Quite a bit less than 1.4. That's the ultimate savings. So if we look at about 75 individuals, we'll spend about $750 to $1 million providing the services to those individuals.
But as I read your piece on this, Scott, it looked to me like the goal would be to go from about $20,000 a year to keep someone incarcerated to $4,000 a year if they could stay in
Right.
Unincarcerated. Is that a word?
Right.
Unincarcerated. In a mental health. So that's what they're after, is to shrink that.
yeah.
And a pretty decent part of that cost is medications, as you would imagine.
Don't they lose Medicare if they go, or Medicaid, whichever one, when they go into prison?
If they're on inmate status, they don't have Medicaid. Medicare, not sure. I believe they hang on to Medicare. But if they're inmate status, they don't have Medicaid.
So if they're in there, then if they lose their Medicaid, then they can't afford their medications. So that's why it probably ends up being an average stay of 102 days other than.
One of the initiatives you'll see in the legislative session coming up is to assist those individuals with getting benefits as they come out of the jail, because the gap in them receiving benefits is costing the state a great deal of money.
Yeah, I seem to remember it's like 45 days or 90 days or something from the time they get out until they... When our CIT team
Closer to 90. picks
somebody up and they don't take them to jail, where do they take them? Do they take them to Arapahoe Mental Health?
Introduce yourself.
Again, I'm Cindy Mitchell. I'm a sergeant with the department here, and I've been the CIT coordinator for the unit since its inception in 2003. And I got to tell you, it's a great program. It's a great program. So by way of introduction with that, in answer to your question, it would depend on the situation. Under the laws, if that person is determined to be gravely disabled or a danger to themselves or others, we have the ability to place them on a protective hold and have them mentally evaluated. So the officer would make that determination, and in that case, they would be transported either by an ambulance or by the officer if they think that that is a better approach. And sometimes these people have been through the system a few times and they do not want to get into that ambulance. So part of the CIT training is to make officers comfortable with doing that transport and having that relationship with that person. And I've had several situations where rather than they absolutely refused to go in the ambulance, we would just take them in a patrol car if we felt that that was appropriate and safe. So that would be up here, that they needed immediate intervention. In other cases where we don't feel that they met that criteria under the law and they're functioning, but they definitely could benefit from services, then the really neat part about our program in Arapahoe Douglas is that we do have that CIT unit to refer people to, and my officers would write a report, tell the consumer that we're going to make a referral, and then they give me a form, and they write a police report on it that is then transferred over to that unit under Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health for a follow-up call the very next day.
And is that the 69 people that's a Littleton? That
Yeah, and that's probably the ones that have actually followed through with services. There's some people that well, I know that I've made probably 130 plus referrals this year so far. So I think we're going to probably hit about 150 referrals this year.
And council has a breakout of the services provided to those 69 individuals. So it's a myriad of mental health services that they.
Cindy, why don't you just comment also on the number of officers that a little bit about the training protocol, the number of officers that have been through, how you try to get more officers through this intensive training.
Sure. As I said, we got in on the ground floor of this in Arapahoe Douglas. It had been started in Jefferson County, and we got on board at the planning meetings for Arapahoe Douglas. So we were in on that ground floor and very active very early. And that was in 2003 for us. And the goal given to me at that time by my administration was to have 25% of our officers trained in CIT. I raised that, and I went for 50%, and we're sitting at about 50% now of trained CIT officers of our sworn officers. Understanding that we do have people in like different units, detective units, where they may not as readily use those skills. We really try to concentrate on our patrol officers with that. So as people go through different assignments, I keep putting people through. We are offered 2 classes a year through Arapahoe Douglas right now, and I always try to have at least 1 or 2 people in each class. Our current number of trained officers is 22 right now.
Just so council knows, the goal is 25% of the officers in each jurisdiction to be trained in CIT. Littleton's always been ahead of that ratio, always. They and Arapahoe County have always exceeded that trained officers.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Debbie?
Sure.
You said that you are able to either call an ambulance for someone or take them. Where do you take them?
It depends on the client. Generally, we try to take them the closest place to work with our paramedics and our fire department, you know, just in the interest of getting them the closest place. So a lot of times Littleton Hospital, but if they're a ongoing client or it's a little bit more serious situation, we'll take them up to Denver Porter because they do have a designated psych unit up there. And in some cases, that's really where they need to go directly. So we take it on a case-by-case basis.
So if you go to Porter, then do you get notified? And
We do. We get notified and we'll evaluate at Porter Hospital, Swedish, Littleton Hospital, Sky Ridge, whichever emergency room they show up at.
Okay, so you actually go to the emergency room that they're
We do.
put at it. Okay.
We do. And it's a safe place, so the officer can take the individual there. We can show up with support and provide that evaluation and make a decision whether they need to be held against their will or released.
Chief, did you want to add anything?
Well, and I think the only thing that I want to say is because we do believe in this, that now that we're fully staffed, thanks to council, we're going to move to get as many people through, because really the goal in the end is to have everyone trained in it, because you never know when you're going to encounter someone with mental health issues. And that's just our community out there. And looking at the numbers in Arapahoe County, the jail is running about 25% mentally ill. And it costs $68 a day to have an inmate in the jail. So when you start doing the math, it's a very expensive proposal. And the jail is currently paying for all of those drugs that those individuals take. So it benefits all of us to get them in a different setting.
Anything else, council? Okay. Thank you, team, for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
And
Appreciate it.
this will be an issue you'll hear more about.
Oh, I'm sure,
In
unfortunately.
I mean, this is really kind of cutting-edge stuff in terms of balancing the cost of what law enforcement, our officers right on the street, what they have to deal with, and how we come up with a smarter system. So you'll hear more about this in 2009. And thank you, Bea, for being here. Scott, thank you very much. Chief, appreciate it. Sergeant Mitchell, thank you. Appreciate you coming by.
Next up is a discussion of Channel 8 video programs. Kelly.
It's hard to believe this.
Good evening.
Good evening.
From all directions. Thank you. Good evening, council. Kathy Weaver, our webmaster, is here tonight, and Chris Hargeth, our title's public relations specialist, but he's our graphic designer. He makes everything look good. So this is the team that does all the communications for the city. I gave you, Councilmember Mulvey had sent out an email today, and I don't think everyone received it, or did you?
I haven't got one yet.
You did? Oh, okay. I guess Suzanne already passed it out.
I got him here, I haven't passed him.
Well, okay. Just want to make sure everybody had it. I sent you a memo last Thursday.
Yeah, with the little butterfly.
Okay, I'll just, did you get one? Oh, there it is.
It's been there all this time.
Sorry.
No, I just threw it there.
I sent you a memo last Thursday, I guess with kind of a three-pronged approach to doing some additional things with Channel 8 for the benefit of the people that didn't get the memo. The first thing is to produce 6 15-minute videos next year that we could air prior to the airing of City Council and Planning Commission meetings. I could write those scripts, and Kathy and Chris have both offered to help with that. For some of you who don't know, when we had Channel 8 up and running previously, I think I wrote scripts for 130 shows. We did one show a month for about, I don't know, 12, 15. It seemed like 100 years. But that's my background, and so I could write the scripts, and Kathy and Chris could help. I had proposed hiring Doug Reed, who used to be the video producer here up until from 2000 to 2004. And the reason I would recommend that is that Doug was responsible for purchasing most of the video equipment that the city owns as the video producer, so he's obviously very familiar with how that equipment works. In order to pay for it, we had $12,000 in the 2009 proposed budget to pay broadband video for the streaming video. At that time, we didn't know. We were still researching the Granicus project. We didn't know how much it would cost or how it would be funded, but you subsequently did approve the Granicus project, and so that $12,000 is still sitting there in the 2009 budget. So we could use $9,000 of that money to pay Doug to produce those 6 programs. The second part of the proposal would be to use the PEG fund to purchase Hellview Television Network. I saw a demonstration of this product last year, and I was very, very impressed with it. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year bulletin board system that would appear on Channel 8 currently. If you look at Channel 8, the screen is black, and it is always black except when the live Council and Planning Commission meetings are on the air. We currently have an automatic playback system, and we currently have a video bulletin board system. This Teleview system would combine both of those. The problem with the 2 systems we currently own is that none of us know how to use them. The difference with Teleview, too, one of the reasons I think Kathy and Chris and I thought we might be able to take this on is because it's web-based. So we would be able to access it from our desk, and we could work on it from our desk in our offices without having to go down to this office and fire up that whole system down there. This also integrates the two systems so that we could schedule the programming from there. That would give us the opportunity to play a lot of these videos we get from other agencies and to schedule replays of the council and planning commission meetings. Kathy's got it fired up, and we thought we would, I'm a visual learner, and so we thought we would show you a demonstration. I follow a lot of television government channels on the East Coast. And so Kathy's just going to show you a demonstration of what this can do with videos as well. I had Doug shoot a lot of videos while everything still looked real pretty in the city. And our current systems won't allow us to play videos the way this does. So go ahead and...
Information operated by the City of Philadelphia Department of Public Property.
View your local community messages on the internet with our newest technology, web links. If you're away from your television and/or have missed important information regarding your township or school, simply go to your township or school website and click the banner advertisement for your local channel. Web links will allow you to instantly receive the messages featured on your access channel.
And that emergency message reminded me that because we can access this from home, for those of us that have the internet, we think it would be very nice to have in the event we had a major blizzard or some other type of emergency, that we, even if we were stranded at home or stranded somewhere else, we could put messages on this bulletin board system. We're proposing to pay for it from the PEG fund. I gave you some cost estimates from this company. I don't think those are all inclusive. The truth of the matter is we're very busy right now with the Littleton calendar, the December Littleton report, and the Granicus system. The Granicus system, just so you know, on the 8th and 9th of December, they will be at the Planning Commission meeting on the 8th. Granicus representatives will be here, and they'll be at the council meeting on the 9th, so that the recording secretaries are going to go through it and practice doing it with the Granicus representatives there. There are other products on the market besides TelView, and the truth of the matter is we haven't spent a lot of time researching what other projects or what other products we might want to purchase. Whether TelView is the best one for us, I'm not sure at this point, but I thought before we spent a lot of time doing that research, we'd wait and get some direction from council as to whether this was something that you were interested in. The third piece would be to use the remaining $3,000 from that $12,000 line item for broadband video to hire Doug to come in and disconnect the old equipment, install the new equipment. We'd be doing this hand in hand with the Information Services Department staff, but Doug would get us up and running. And TelView does provide training too, but I think Doug is pretty familiar with these systems. It would be real helpful to have him help us with the installation. So those are the three sort of pronged approach to maybe enhancing and expanding what we do on Channel 8. Councilmember Mulvey's memo, his email today, I think does raise some good points. I'm wondering too if we bought off more than we can chew. It's pretty ambitious, and but I think we're willing to try. I think I don't think there's any harm, at least, in acquiring the bulletin board system, because at least we'll have the system in place. And if we find that we just don't have time to keep it updated the way we'd like to, maybe we can address it at that time. So with that, Kathy and Chris and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
I like all the things you outlined here. I think they're all good. I don't understand the bulletin board. If you're at home and the flood's coming, you can put it on, and there's Channel 8 on the air all the time that they can see it? Or are you just talking about putting it on the web?
Both. Kathy Weaver has never really taken a real vacation since she's worked for the city. She's always taken her laptop with her every time she's left town. So Kathy Weaver has put messages on our website for us when she's been on vacation in California. And I think even somewhere even more remote than that, recently camping. We'd be able to do the same thing with this video text bulletin board system. If we have a computer and we have internet access, doesn't matter where we are, anywhere in the world, we could provide updates to it.
Who turns on Channel 8 though? Isn't it black up to this point?
Well, right now it's black.
Yeah, I mean, if you, are we going 24 hours where you could come in and out at any time?
Yes.
Sit on the, I like the idea of being on 24 hours.
Year-round, all day, every day.
I think it'd be beneficial if we had like the snowstorm that we had, what, two years ago,
Right.
to be able to put in information about when areas are going to be plowed and what's happening
Sure,
and things like this.
absolutely.
And that's something you could do from home, or
And what we used to have
Charlie
with...
could do from Florida.
Exactly. What we used to have with the bulletin board system is we had some template emergency messages created, like for flooding and tornadoes and blizzards, so that if there was one, we could just go in and put the, the most current information. But it was already created and sort of ready to go. So this would allow you to do something like that.
So how are we on 24 hours a day? Are we paying somebody to sit there and watch it that's on the air? That it's
No,
not
it's
black?
just, we could go upstairs right now. Well, it's on right now. If when Wilton left tonight, he didn't turn the switch off, it'd be 24/7, 365 live shot of the council chamber in there. It'd be no different than that. The way it used to be is the switch on the modulator was just on all the time. And the only time it turned off is when we broadcast a live signal out of that room.
But you could, for instance, take the top 10 web pages, for instance, and put them on as pages on the that rotate through on Channel 8 on the off hours, right?
Yes, part of this is something called web links, and neither Kathy or I understand it. We haven't really looked into it, but that's the claim that they're making, is that you can have web pages and bulletin board pages that are in sync. Do you understand it any more than that?
I think what they're saying is that you can take,
I should know better. Of all people, you should.
what I think that they were saying was that you could take the stuff that appears on Channel 8, you could look at it on the website, so that if the museum or the library happened to post an event on Channel 8, they could actually go to the library website and see it there too. So it's redundant. I think that's what web links is.
We'll find out.
Any other questions?
I feel that that I'm got left behind at some spaceship port, and this went out here someplace, not with a technology discussion, but I thought that during our budget process, what we said, we were talking about, do we want a full-time videographer? And I thought we said our next step would be for all of us to get together and say, these are the kinds of things that I want one way or another on the TV or on the web or whatever, so we could see how much we wanted to be doing and what might be the best way to go.
And
And
now
at
is
this point, now
exactly the
we've
time to
got-
do that.
Pardon?
Now is exactly the time to do that.
Yeah, well, it seems to me discussing any of these is we need to put that behind us while we do this other first.
Well, what I think you have here is, pardon me, 2 or 3 different moderately related things. One is you have a proposal that for $9,000 or $9,500 we can do 6 shows a year. for the 9,000. That, I think, we have to sit down and figure out what is it that we want to do with Channel 8 programming-wise, and does 6 shows cover that? And I think that's exactly what we were talking about the budget session. The second aspect is the bulletin board where you can put emergency information up on Channel 8. And part of my concern was getting exactly that done on Channel 8 as another form of communication for those citizens that don't have internet or computers. And I know there's some because they've talked to me, complaining about lack of information during the snowstorm a couple years ago. So the second part of this addresses that for me. Then the home access and getting Doug Reed to help train the stuff is some ways addressing the, do we need to hire somebody full-time, or can we take the existing personnel that we have and give them more work to do, and thereby avoid getting somebody else? And I think the answer to that is yes, we think. But the part that we still have to do is, are there things that we want to do on Channel 8 that exceed 6 shows a year that we could fund with the amount of money that's being suggested that's already in a line item for the 2009 budget? And I think you had some particular shows in mind.
Well, there's a lot of shows that we had on before that Kelly had on in the past. I thought was very good. And that type of show, again, the bulletin board to me is something we need, but it's not the end all.
No.
I still think we need a TV producer, and I think we need to get all these other shows going back again. And how much that's I'll find out what they're paying that one. You were going to look into Wheat Ridge, how much they were paying the producer there.
They're contracting it out as well. I did talk to Heather Geyer at Wheat Ridge. So they're in a similar situation as we are in. Are you talking about what Wheat Ridge is paying, or what the salary for the
memo of October 10th here in the city of 32,000 population is now airing a channel on Channel 8, a protocol, top of the hour with Mayor Jerry. And I asked in there if you'd find out how much they were paying their TV producer and whether on 24 hours or how many their hours they are or what they're doing. Do they rotate the mayor?
She said that they had only done, I think, 2 shows so far, that this was brand new, but that they had contracted it out. It wasn't a full-time position. I don't recall how much she said they were paying the contractor to do that.
Well, one of the advantages of going with this method is in theory, we could utilize some of that Channel 8 type programming that's been produced by other entities, I'm assuming. Like the
I
stuff
get
that...
stuff in the mail all the time, from RTD, Fast Tracks, Dr. Cog, the DNC videos. I get all kinds of stuff.
And didn't you say that part of this system would allow that to be run? You could set it up and... I'm assuming you could do it, or I could get my teenage daughter to program the...
Bring your teenagers in. Maybe they could teach us
because I can't do the
how.
VCR.
They have to be 14 or younger.
I know. To program it so it runs at certain times a day.
Yeah, I mean, that's the intent, is that we would all learn how to do that, so that even, one of the things I was thinking is maybe you replay planning commission meetings on Wednesday nights at 7 after it was live on Monday, and you replay council meetings on Thursday nights at 7. It would allow us the capability to create a schedule and put programming plugged into a schedule 7 days a week.
And I still think we need to televise all boards and commissions, not just planning and not just city council.
Well, I think that that's a good goal to do that, but that gets a lot more complex because you can potentially have scheduling conflicts. I mean, we either have to get equipment and televise it from where they're meeting.
Bring them in here.
Or you have to bring them in here, and then you have the issue of you have to schedule them all so they're not all happening on either Mondays
or... change some of their nights so we wouldn't have everybody coming in on Monday night, whatever night their meetings are, but we could work that out.
Well, we could do a portion of that right we could do a portion of that with Wilton because it's $150 a meeting, isn't it still?
175.
$175 a meeting.
Well, I want a TV producer full-time for
Well-
all this, put all this together. And we've had it before. Had one up to 2004.
I want to raise another issue about the emergency notices. I live in a part of Littleton that if the electricity goes off any place, it probably goes off in my block. Well, some of the blocks that I'm in and surrounding blocks. So it's not going to help me to have the TV or the computer tell me.
Unless you have
About
a
any-
laptop with a battery.
Well, we don't use those. I mean, well, you're not sitting there with those, and generally, we don't have access to those. I'm not going to go buy one just for that, but I do have a crank radio, one of those emergency radios, which I haven't had to use since I got it. But I think we want to be asking ourselves, who do we want to reach under what circumstances? Because some people don't have any kind of computer, and again, if the electricity's off, they're not going to get radio or TV unless they've got some kind of...
And actually, during the blizzard that Doug was talking about, we actually, in the Emergency Operations Center, we actually put together a totally by hand notification system we had used because the paramedics and the dispatch keep a list of, for example, handicapped people who are, homebound, who are medically frail, and we were prepared to actually go door to door, and we had public works, public services people, so we had actually done a backup plan just in that contingency so that we'd fan out into the neighborhoods. But let me just get back, council, I think for those of us who've been here on staff from the day that Channel 8 first came on, and maybe we've mushed it together a little bit, but what we've tried to do is present to you all of the things that are now being visually presented. I mean, if you look back at what we did when we had a full-time video producer, when we were doing, I think, just the council meetings, we weren't doing any of the planning commission meetings, and actually even before that, that was when it was still being funded by TCI, when we had a full studio. We were doing the one a month.
Yeah.
But if you look at the whole package of video services with the website, and then from a greedy point of view, or from a selfish point of view, with the Granicus and the TeleView, those are things that we can fund with the PEG money. So yes, it's ambitious, Tom, but I think I think Doug's challenge to you, if you think that there is a package of services over and beyond what Kelly has laid out here, that at least 4 of you want to fund $70,000 a year out of the general fund, then that's the policy decision you'll need to reach. But what the staff has brought you here is, in my judgment, a very enhanced package, but with almost 60% of it, maybe more, being funded by the PEG funds.
Well, to me, part of it is, at what point are we spending more than we would be spending if we had a full-time producer? And I don't think we're there yet, because I'm assuming that we're televising 6 times a month, 4 council meetings and 2 planning commissions, and that makes Wilton's cost about $12,600. So if we add the $9,000 for Doug Reed for 6 shows a month, you're up to $20,000, which leaves us still $50,000 less than what a full-time producer would be. So if we then said we wanted to televise, some other boards and commission meetings, and we were to pick some set of those, then we could figure at $175 a meeting how much that was going to cost us. I mean, at some point,
if you get within striking distance of that $70,000,
if you get within striking distance,
whatever you feel comfortable with, but
then it may make sense. But I don't see what it is that's driving us to go from the 20,000 right now to the 70,000 that it would be for a producer, unless it is that we want to do more shows a year or something. So I guess that's what I was hoping the council would come tonight with is what specifically is it that we want to do, and then to see if we can fit that in with this pricing structure and not get a new head, or if by the time we add all that stuff up together, that it makes sense to go to another full-time person. Does that make sense, that methodology?
I thought we already had about 40,000 in the general fund for TV producer, or for Channel 8 for 2009.
For '09, it's budgeted at $37,000, but $12,000 of that is for broadband video. So the contractor that does the meetings is about $25,000. And as of, I don't know, recently, we were already up to $20,100. I think at the end of September. So
Is that for Wilton doing the televising?
right.
Okay, so my 12 was way low. Okay. So we're at 20 grand for televising meetings.
Anticipated to be 25 for next year.
Okay, because the 12 that we do for the video streaming wouldn't change. We have that cost whether we have a full-time guy or don't have a full-time guy.
No, the video streaming's going away with Granicus.
Okay.
And
So-
Granicus is costing us, how much? Granicus? It's costing,
I think it's around, wasn't 36,000?
I think.
Granicus?
I can't
30,
remember.
36,000?
But Granicus, I mean, the 12 is either here or it's not here. It's either replaced or not replaced with Granicus, but none of that is affected by having or not having a full-time producer.
Let me just continue to make my little mantra here, except that but when the 12 went away and it got subsumed under Granicus, it went from the general fund to the PEG money.
Yes.
So you can see my little selfish antenna here.
No, I mean, that's a wise thing to do, but hiring a full-time producer, you still have to stream the video.
Yes,
So you either have to pay the 12 grand or you have to get the Granicus system.
that's true.
So that really doesn't matter whether you have a full-time producer or not. That
Right.
cost is...
Right, so you'd back, if you're trying to get your spread,
I'm
you'd
trying to
back
get my
that
spread.
12,000 out.
So for the spread, we're really at the 20,000, or what'd you say, 25?
25.
Okay, we're really at the 25,000 for the broadcasting, plus if we add the 9,000 in for the 6 shows a year.
That's correct.
So we're at 34 grand for this. So then it becomes, if we want to do more shows, or if we want to televise more board and commission meetings, and then I think we'd have to figure out how much, and then look at the dollars. I mean, that to me is what makes sense.
Well, we talked about doing the board and commission members, and more communications to our citizens, and also our workshop. And I think we can do it. And I think we've got the equipment right now to do it at the museum, from what I read of what you were talking about here. So we don't have to buy any new equipment to go do a remote at the museum if the board's at the museum or if it's at the library.
No.
You say you can do some things here that talks just the same way as...
Well, you could set up a camera over at the museum and you could tape a meeting, but you can't air it live from there. All that equipment is up there. And you couldn't have a 3-camera shoot like you have here. And there's not an audio system over there like you have in the council chamber or like we have here. So, I mean, you could do it, but it'd be fairly primitive compared to what you can do in there and in here.
So we're going to do our workshop in here?
Wherever you want. You let us know.
We said we'd televise it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think we need to do the boards and commissions, all of them, just like we're doing with the 2 now.
Debbie?
Well, I
I agree with Tom that it would be great to have all the boards and commissions and all of our meetings, but I think that we kind of went from 0 to 60. I like the plan that Kelly has here with the 6 shows. I think that they're shows that if we plan them properly, we could get some great information out to the citizens. There's been a lot of, not complaints, but people saying, yeah, your website's great and you have a lot of information, but there are people who don't have computers, and then a lot of people who can't access that information through that. With Channel 8, that allows us to give, I love the electronic bulletin board because you can change things quickly, you can respond quickly. When the train derailed, people that were looking for information, you can get it out. We don't have that type of information, instant information in the city right now. That does provide that. So for emergency situations, I think it's great. For other informational situations, I think it's great too, just to remind people. Today it would have been great to even have the Veterans Memorial for those that couldn't get out. If it had been inclement weather, it would have been even nicer for people to be able to see some of that. So I think that there's tremendous opportunity with this. I think that where Kelly's going on this particular proposal, I support this for us to move ahead with doing something like this now. I don't feel as though we're really ready to go, hire a full-time producer, and that we don't really know what we need them to do yet. I'd like to see us kind of work this through and see what we did on these 6 shows. How do we really use the bulletin board? Doesn't mean we can't expand it. Doesn't mean that in 6 months we can't make it more vibrant, more dynamic. But I think for starting off, I think this is a good plan to start off. I think financially, I think it's a fair price. It's fiscally responsible, and I think we could get our feet wet a little bit with this and kind of see where it could take us.
My preference is to go with what we have here. When does the liquor board meet? The booze board? Wednesdays, and they meet in the council room? Who else meets in the council room right now?
Board of Adjustment, Building Board of Appeals.
We meet like once every...
Whenever they have a case.
Yeah, very sporadically.
Election Commission would be the same way. They don't meet very often. HPB, do they meet in here?
They meet in here on Mondays. On third Monday.
If we were going to televise additional boards, I would think that we'd want to pick the bigger boards. And Liquor Authority is, they're kind of quasi-judicial. They do the enforcement of the liquor laws. HPB is a pretty hot topic right now because of the upcoming stuff that's going to happen with potentially downtown, looking at historic preservation with that. Those are the 2 boards that would make obvious sense because they meet in the council chambers. Museum board and library board are both important boards, but they both meet in their respective places, and they would be.
BIAC meets in here.
BIAC meets in here.
BIAC would be a good one too.
Yeah, but they meet in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm. But if you're 24 hours, you could tape it and then play it.
You could tape it and play it later, because I don't think very many people are going to look at it at, Friday mornings or something?
At 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Probably not going to have a real big Nelson rating.
I think one of the other kind of wild cards in this whole thing is what's HDTV going to do. I don't know if Comcast is going to have 2 Channel 7s, 2 Channel 9s, 2 Channel 2s. Well, everything's duplicated on Comcast right now. And I can't see them keeping that once they go to HDTV. The broadcast channels have even announced they are going to have different numbers for their channel that's over the air. So I think until HDTV kind of flushes itself out, we aren't going to know where we're going to end up on the cable wire and what's going to be on each side of it. It may be that people are flipping through, channels that nobody watches, and Channel 8's right in the middle of it. So I think that's really going to affect, or could affect, viewership if we're no longer in between 7 and 9. And so I think we need to find out what's going to happen with HDTV. I think the other thing to remember is still less than 50% of our citizens get cable TV. And, so that's, what our market is.
Well, what we have in the memo is Doug Reed and the 6 shows, right? And what did you call that system? Teleview.
The bulletin board.
And Teleview. And that is part of the bulletin board, or that's separate?
That is.
Okay.
The bulletin board system.
And then there's $3,000 for
Yeah,
Doug
number
showed
2
you
and
where the
number
on
3
switch is.
kind of go hand in hand. If you do number 2, we'd sure like you to do number 3.
Teleview, right? Number 1
Yeah,
is
so
Doug
number
Reed.
2 and 3 are really a package.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
They just have different funding sources, is why I broke them out.
Okay. Well, I see it looks to me like what we have is a couple choices, and one is to go with the 1 and the 2-3 combo, and/or go to a full-time producer, which I'm assuming would replace Doug Reed for the 6 shows. And then the other issue is do we televise more board and commission meetings? And if we do, which ones? I mean, that's what I see the decisions that we have in front of us.
What we're, on the Teleview, you said you haven't looked at a lot of other ones out there, so I would
I
like
have a
to...
proposal on another system called
Okay.
Scala, and it's in the same ballpark.
Okay. Are they all just fairly comparable to each other? I mean, there's nothing real...
We looked at demos for Scala and Telview, and that's it. And I tried to make some phone calls to some other cities to find out what they were using, and I didn't find anybody that's using either one of those. So we're still, if this is something you want to do, we need to do some more research.
Well, this is probably something that we would need or want regardless of whether we had a full-time or we had substitutes. So I move that we direct the staff to go do number 2 and 3 off of the memo, which is the Teleview or some appropriate, go off and investigate Teleview or some alternative, and then get the training from Doug Reed so we know where the on switch is.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
I have no objections to any of that. I liked what she said from the start.
Okay.
And the bulletin board, from our past survey, was the most watched program. So I'm with it all the way on what she's got in paper there.
Okay, great. Council ready to vote? Raise your hands if you're in favor of the 2 and 3 option. Unanimous. Then that brings us to the number 1 option, which is, should we try running 6 shows with Doug Reed? And I'll make a motion that we direct staff to contract with Doug Reed, or however it is that we do this. Is this a single source, or?
Since it's
professional services, you can see those.
Okay. So I move that we do number 1, which is the investigating to do the 6 shows for the next year.
Second.
Jose seconded? Okay.
Say again your motion.
The motion is that we direct the staff to go off and work out an arrangement with Doug Reed to do 6 shows for the next year,
And
which is basically number 1 in the memo.
so you're ready for discussion?
Yes.
So why are we picking a particular person to do this? I know you asked him, Kelly, to do the one thing, the National Night Out. But wouldn't we want to be soliciting from people what they might want to do and how much they would charge?
Well, I think that's a good question. You know, for my own gray hair and brain damage, it would be nice to hire Doug because Doug purchased all this equipment. Doug used to work at, it had 5 iterations since I've been here. It was AT&T, TCI, United Cable. And Doug worked up at that facility up in Mineral where we had the studio. He was one of 3 employees. So when I came to work here, I worked with those 3 employees paid for by the cable company. They were doing high school football games, high school basketball games. They were doing all kinds of stuff up there, the monthly cable show, all kinds of stuff. And then the cable company closed the facility. We went out, did a competitive process. We ended up hiring Doug. So Doug worked for us for 4 years. So Doug either acquired all that equipment that we brought over when the cable company closed that facility. They gave us all the equipment. And a lot of it was junk and was 25 years old and we got rid of. Some of it we kept. And then we acquired additional equipment over the 4 years that Doug worked here with the PEG fund. And so Doug knows all that equipment inside and out. He purchased all of it. He worked with it. For simplicity's purposes, it would be nice to have Doug because he could step right in and he knows all that equipment.
Let me just add to that, Peggy, for the record, and I think part of the answer to your question is in Kelly's second paragraph, under number 1, which says Doug's proposed a budget of $9,000 or $1,500 per show. This is about $100 per finished minute, compared to the industry rate of about $1,000 per finished minute. Now, if council directed, we could certainly put together an RFP and go out and solicit, just broadcast a solicitation and say we'd like to have people propose at $100 a minute. I don't know what kinds of responses we would get, but given the fact that Doug knows the equipment so well, my guess is not many people would come in and meet that price. So if this were a much larger, you know, if we were putting out something like an architectural contract where you're talking $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000, then certainly you'd go through, I think, a full-blown RFP. And at some point, you get to where you may be using up as much staff time writing an RFP and going through the whole process than any real savings that you're going to achieve.
I just needed to.
Sure, no, it's an excellent question.
I think also after we do 6 shows and we know what we actually want to do and what we want, it might be easier to write an RFP, but at this point, I'm not sure we even know what we want yet, what we're going to do.
We'll experiment.
Well, I think it's a good idea because we can incorporate some of these other things that we had in past programs, like the mayor reports, and maybe bring in David to talk about what's at the Buck Center and things like that. Just communicate with the students, with the citizens on that 15 minutes, because it'll run, what, 6 times a year, you said?
Yeah.
Or you do it 6 times a year?
We'll produce 6 new shows a year, but because we will now have a bulletin board system, we can schedule it all the time. I mean, we could schedule it to air every day of the week at 6:45 in the evening. We could schedule it to air whenever we wanted.
But you update it as you go along.
It'd be kind of like the Littleton Report. We'd shoot a new show every other month. So we'd try to look out into what's coming up over the next, 6-week time period that we might want to cover.
I do some of it.
That's a start. Any more discussion? Okay, the motion is to do number 1, which is to do the 6 shows a year. Everybody in favor, raise your hands. And that's unanimous.
6 in favor, yes.
Makes it easier for the minutes.
With the exception of the absent council member, then all the council members.
Yes, it's unanimous except for Jim Taylor.
Is absent.
And that leaves us, the last thing is do we want to televise more board meetings and which ones? And what do we have in the budget for 2009 right now?
That's that 25,000.
And that just covers the planning commission and the city council?
No, what I tried to do is, at the end of September, you were at 20,100. And remember, I came to you at a council meeting, maybe the first council meeting of October, and we did a budget transfer to put some more money in to get us through the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm anticipating that 25,000 is going to be close to your actual for this year. So that would take into account the additional things we did last year that we didn't anticipate, like the board and commission interviews and the 5 nights of budget workshops.
Okay.
And we did not televise the council workshop, so that might kick it over the top if we do that in February. But 25,000 is a good guess for what you did this year.
Okay. So if we're going to do more boards and commissions, we'd have to cough up the money from someplace else. At 175 a meeting.
That's correct.
How often does the liquor authority meet? Is it once a month? So that's $175 a meeting. So that's what, $1,700 to do liquor authority. Want to try liquor authority?
When we interviewed for boards and commissions, that was one of our questions. Would they be shocked or upset by being on television? And everybody was okay with that.
Yeah. And I would, my guess would be liquor authority would be the next one that would be most interesting to the people after the planning commission and of course the city council.
2,100.
2,100? Okay. You want to move to televise liquor authority?
I make a move that we televise liquor authority.
Okay. Second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded by Jose. Discussion?
Kathy has...
Question over there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if it's an ongoing price or if it's just one once, but I know that when we got Granicus, we only paid for 2 meetings, so there's a charge for every meeting we have.
Oh, on Granicus, is there?
But, and I don't know, do you remember?
You better repeat her question since she didn't have a mic.
The statement is there may be some uncertainty of what the actual cost is for doing the planning commission based on fees that we may have to pay through Granicus, which isn't.
I'm confused.
Liquor
To add the
authority.
liquor authority?
Yeah, you just said planning commission. You meant
I'm sorry, I
liquor.
said planning commission. I meant liquor. It's late. I have a cold.
Well, we can put them on Channel 8 without going through Granicus, right?
Yeah, I think Kathy's referring to the streaming on the website
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, the whole minutes and meditation, the whole package, Granicus package.
Well, if this passes, I would assume that we're looking in the, what'd you say, $2,100 price range? That we're looking at the $2,100 price range, and then you'll come back to us with some modification of that. Any further discussion? Council ready to vote? All in favor of televising the liquor authority, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. John?
4 in favor with Councilwoman Brinkman, Councilman Ostermiller voting no. Motion carries.
Brinkman voted no.
So if I can clarify, are you talking about doing that in 2009?
Okay.
So we'll just send it until we run out and come see at the end of next year, and you can fill it back up again.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to move that we televise the workshop.
It's been moved that we televise the workshop. Is there a second for that? At this point, that dies for a second. When we get closer to the workshop and we know what's on it, that may be worth bringing back up again.
Excuse me?
When we get closer to the workshop and we know what's on the workshop, that may be worthwhile doing again. I have a hard time seeing somebody sitting in front of the television for 8 hours, but I could be
I'm not
wrong.
wild about it because it's too much of setting up props and too much people coughing and laughing, and it needs to be cut down and taped and edited down to where it's just a good meat.
Okay, that brings us to Charlie.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Charlie, you have less time because we started late. You started late. Yeah, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Are there any questions?
How are you, Charlie?
Pardon?
How are you?
Council, you have an item in your packet, a memo from me concerning capital improvement work scheduled for 2009. Go through it fairly quickly because I don't need to repeat some of the stuff, and then you can ask questions. The first section has to do with street rehabilitation work for next year. As you can see from the list, for 2009, I'm proposing Main Street, Bellflower Drive over in Beaumar South, and a section of East Powers Avenue just to the north of Littleton High School. That would take up to $1 million. If you wish to do specialized intersection treatment on Main Street, as suggested by Councilman Taylor, it would increase the cost of the Main Street project anywhere from $20,000 up to over $250,000. So I'm going to give you a little bit of briefing on this with the help of Kathy Weaver. I'm going to show you some intersection treatments. This is location where you have the painted crosswalks, and then you have some, it's a fiber resin product. This is on Colorado Boulevard at Louisiana in Denver. And as you approach it, it looks more orange than it does the color in the photo. It stands out very distinctly. And they've done this in all 4 directions to identify the crosswalk. I can tell you that as you approach it, you see it, but since there's so many cars on Colorado Boulevard, it really doesn't stand out as much. On Main Street, we would have significantly less traffic. This is one of the least costly alternatives if you wish to do the intersection treatment. It's about $20,000. Now, it was $20,000 for this in Denver. Since our street is much narrower, we're predicting it might be $15,000 to $16,000 to apply this.
What kind of lifetime does it have?
We don't know.
How much does it cost for the white lines?
Just for the white line, nothing. You want to do just white, that's the cheapest alternative, Doug. If you want to paint crosswalks like we have today, if you look at the stop bar that's in the photograph, which is the wide bar to the left of the crosswalk right there, that's called a stop bar. We do those in Littleton. We've done them on Main Street, and they don't cost anything. We apply that ourselves, and we have the material. It's obviously there is some cost for the material in applying it, but it's not a significant item. But that is a resin product. It might last up to 5 years. The street superintendent, Steve Alexander, had some concern because on Main Street we use a steel bit on snow plows, and would it take it up? We don't know. The product on Colorado Boulevard here has not been tested in the wintertime. It's been there only for about 7 months.
We don't know how it behaves with that wonderful ice preventive stuff either then.
No.
Would
Next
that-
photo.
Would that be done in all directions of the intersection?
Yes. It would not be done in the diagonal direction. It would just be done in the 4 directions. There's another photo of it looking to the west. The gentleman standing there wondering what is going on.
Council, they had bums still on Colorado Boulevard.
He was waiting for a bus, and there's no bus stop there. It's a resin product that is applied to the existing pavement. It doesn't look bad, it's different.
I'm trying to remember, did they do that at every intersection on Colorado?
No, this was the only one we found.
Are you doing asphalt on Main Street or concrete?
Asphalt. Let me explain for that a moment, Doug, is if we do concrete, we'd have to go down about 12 inches, and we're certain to hit the trolley tracks. If we go 3 inches, we can rotomill, apply a 3-inch overlay, and we don't believe we will hit the tracks.
Are there really tracks there?
Yes.
I've been hearing that for years.
I have a piece of it in my office, if you wish.
I've got a piece of it. I thought there was the last one.
No.
So,
We removed the trolley tracks in Main Street to do the concrete, but it turns west at Main Street, goes down to Rapp. And if we do it in asphalt, which is proposed in the memo for this price, it can be done relatively quickly and at a price that we feel is reasonable. If you want to put Main Street in the concrete, we're talking a different animal.
We're also talking some significant business disruption,
Oh,
and which is another factor that Charlie hasn't talked about.
huge.
I think that's another factor that really,
And it would be louder, wouldn't it?
It probably would be. We can actually use what's called a polymer asphalt, which is very hard. We've used it on Mineral Avenue. We thought it was very successful. It does quiet the noise. People who have been on Mineral Avenue or live nearby say that they believe the new asphalt pavement we've been using is quieter. We believe it's the best
but
alternative.
Doug is saying if we went with concrete, it would be louder.
Pardon?
Doug was saying if we went with concrete, it would be louder.
Oh, yeah, we believe
Absolutely.
it. Yes.
Does the de-icer have the same effect on asphalt that it does on concrete?
We haven't found any difference at all. We have concrete on Prince, mineral bowls at the corner of Orchard and Broadway and Arapahoe and Broadway, and we have not noticed any deterioration of concrete or asphalt because of the de-icer product we use. We have not noticed that.
How about the street poles?
The street what?
The street poles? Aren't you x-raying all the,
Oh, the traffic signal poles? Yeah, we're doing that next year. No, the traffic signal pole project we're doing, it's an x-ray where we look for fractures where the mast arm attaches to the pole.
oh, up high then?
Yes, and if that mast arm is creating a fracture inside the pole that we can't see otherwise. And now that you've seen enough of this picture with somebody standing there.
So I want to ask you a question. So I thought the last time you told us about Main Street, you were going to be taking up going down and taking up the rails, but you've changed your approach now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If we take up the tracks and go down that deep, we're talking a long project, much higher cost. There's no way we could get the work done by Western Welcome Week.
But you think this is a good
We
alternative?
believe that this will work 3 inches deep, reapplying 3 inches of asphalt. We believe it's the best alternative.
Okay,
We're looking at a life cycle of 20 years.
okay.
If you take up the tracks, you'll have very disappointed archaeologists sometime in the future.
Yes. You and I won't be here to worry about it. This is in downtown Denver. It's a brick paver. We show this one. I don't know if it doesn't look too good from this angle, but over in the left corner on the bottom, you can see where the brick pavers are starting to loosen. As we looked at these in Denver, and most of these are on Larimer Street, there we go, we noticed it wasn't working well. First of all, the brick pavers faded. Secondly, they began to move and deteriorate. And thirdly, it just didn't look like it was of value. I can't imagine that over the number of years, and we determined this is somewhere between 7 and 10 years application, we thought this didn't turn out very well at all. Let's go to another one, Kathy. We show this picture because this is the type of handicap ramp we're going to be doing in downtown Littleton in the next couple of weeks. Because we, at Prince Street, for example, we allow crosswalk in all direction, including diagonal, we have to put in what's called these truncated domes. These are for the visually impaired. Because we have so many visually impaired people using the streets in downtown Littleton, we feel that this is essential to put in.
Is that what the dots are for? Is for the visually impaired?
Yes, but they're raised up. I believe that there's going to be a snow removal problem because the snow and ice will settle in between the domes. So I think it's going to create some issues with snow, but we're going to find out because we've done these in some other locations.
Charlotte, where's this?
This is in Golden. You can see that it's a different color, it's raised dots, and we will have to be doing this in Littleton on Main Street, and you will see it starting a week from yesterday. On the 17th, contractor moves in and starts doing concrete work on Main Street. We're passing out notices now to the merchants and owners.
Do you have every intersection in the metro area memorized?
Yes.
Curious.
Next picture, Kathy. Yeah, this is downtown Denver again. We're showing here the color and the texture difference in the intersection treatment. You notice in the center where there happens to be a manhole, which is actually steam, and how this looks. We again feel this is somewhere between 7 and 10 years, and we honestly didn't think it was worth doing because of the fading. This is a brick paver, very wide at the crosswalks. They don't mark their pedestrian crosswalks with white tape like we do. They just do this. Heavily used, although you don't see anybody here, but we were there at noon on a Thursday. There were a lot of people in the area. The concrete in the intersection looks pretty good after all the years, but we felt the brick pavers were deteriorating. Next picture, Kevin. This is kind of interesting. Can you pull it up a little closer? There we go. Anybody tell me where this is? This is Washington Street in downtown Golden. See, Doug?
Uh-huh. That's what I mean.
We noticed people using it a lot, and then we talked to them. What did they think of it? All of them, 100%, were heavily in favor that this works. They liked it. And they liked the word, look. And it works. When we approached it, we looked down. Of course, we were looking for things like this. It was kind of an interesting approach. We really kind of like this. This has been there over 10 years. Show another one, Kevin. A little closer then. This is downtown Golden again. This is brick pavers and a concrete edger. You notice they put a concrete vertical line against the pavers. These are not real bricks, they're just brick pavers. These have also been there at least 10 years.
So what's the difference between these bricks and the ones in Denver that were deteriorating after?
Application.
Is that it?
The installation of them. Underneath this is about 6 inches of concrete, then sand, and they're placed in there, and then they're grouted in. This takes an incredible amount of time. We're predicting if you wanted to do this at Prince Street, Curtis, in Nevada, it's over $250,000. And the street would have to be closed in order to install it.
But do you remember when we had Joe Gibbs come in, the consultant from, and he went up and down Main Street, and his mantra was, don't put in expensive pavers.
Yes.
It's not worth it. They go out of style before you get them paved. And Rodeo Drive doesn't have them. They just have sawn concrete.
Yes, we do remember that. But Charlie, we shot these specifically in response to Jim Taylor's request, and so that's why we're bringing this to you. And obviously, he's been the one who's championed this as a courtesy to him. I think he needs to see these, but Charlie already had them ready, and so since we were going to be talking about the street paving program tonight, we wanted to go ahead and show them to you.
I'm showing you those. I'm going to pass around some photographs that we took that gives you a closer look. Sometimes it's better than the photographs above. Pass around in two directions. Just so if you want to look more detailed. This did work. There were very few, if any, bricks that were displaced. They used the same de-icer that we use in Littleton, Golden does. They have approximately the same amount of vehicles and truck traffic on Washington as we have on Main Street. And we were extremely impressed with the durability and the installation of these brick pavers. And it does look a little better. Do the next slide, Kathy. Can we go closer? Now here's an interesting photo we took in that same area. Notice the color difference in the concrete. So it can, if you have to replace sections of concrete, it doesn't always look 100% uniform if the aesthetics is the main issue. Now, of course, that newer concrete is going to fade and deteriorate some, but I point that out just to show you that it is not perfect. But as we walk through all of these, and believe it or not, we walk very slowly, we press the button, we look carefully for displaced brick. This was an incredibly well done installation. Kathy? Here is one that we found in downtown Denver. This is very typical of what can occur. Again, as I pointed out, we do use steel bits in our snowplows. If there is the slightest rise in one of those bricks, it will pull it out. Kathy? We're downtown Denver again. Notice over on the right-hand side some settlement that's occurred.
On the previous slide, did they just fix it by pouring some concrete in where the brick used to be?
Yes, or asphalt.
Or asphalt?
Yeah, the asphalt would be cheaper.
Because they probably don't have the bricks anymore.
You could probably get the brick, but to be honest about it, in order to take care of that hole, you throw some asphalt in there to take care of it temporarily until you want to come back. Sometimes temporary is a long time. Kathy? This is a real close-up of the truncated domes, as they're called, that are used and mandated by the federal government, used all over the country for the visually impaired. As I indicated, we have a significant high number of blind people in downtown Littleton, and you will see these installed in the next several weeks. My issue with this is using a shovel to clear the snow off of these. I have a great deal of concern that this may not be easy, and we don't clear the sidewalks on Main Street. Yeah.
The other issue is the melting and refreezing and
absolutely.
the slickness on the metal.
Absolutely. Again, notice the staining on the left. It would be very hard to remove that if we were to do it every time it occurs. In other words, it's not perfect. You see also they don't edge their brickwork. This is in downtown Denver. To the left, you're looking north on, I believe it's Market Street. To the left is the P.F. Chang restaurant, if you're familiar with that area now. This is 15th Street, going from left to right. There's that same gentleman up there at the top. He's everywhere we looked at. But you can see that this is part of what happens. Now, that was asphalt. That stain would not show. Kathy? More of the deterioration. Notice the pattern they use, a herringbone style. It can look well if it's done right, but we had some issues here. Go ahead.
Charlie, are those noisier?
Yes. And we could tell the noise while we were there, especially where the depressed area is. And our steel bits will, that brick, that piece that's raised in the center of the photo, our bits will pull that out. Go ahead.
And there was also weaving, wasn't
Oh,
there?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was settlement in there. This is more concrete work, and you can see how it fades. You get the oil stains. Putting concrete in the intersection is very expensive and very time-consuming, and as I indicated, it would require closing streets.
Why did they do that at Broadway and Bellevue, for instance?
I don't know.
Make the intersection concrete?
Oh, at Broadway and Bellevue?
Yeah.
CDOT did that several years ago because intersections like that can be done in concrete. If that was done probably 5 to 7 years ago, concrete was actually as cheap as asphalt. Again, here, I'm just showing you what concrete pavement can look like. We can see it in Littleton in places where we have intersections that are done in concrete and you get the staining. We do not use colored concrete in those locations. Go ahead, Kathy. Real close-up of the, can you pull it in a little closer? Notice the grout in the brick. As long as that's been there, I'll tell you that is an incredible installation. That still looks very nice, and they use kind of a reddish color as the grout, and it's very thick compared to most. And notice it's just a brick paver and a concrete edge on the side that's done white to identify the crosswalk. It's very well done, Kath. Well, they didn't use the truncated domes back then. They used just a regular ribbed handicap ramp. They've done a lot of work in downtown Golden. I'll tell you, they have spent an incredible amount of money. Kath? Next one. Here's another one. This is downtown Denver, and you can see the deterioration and the color differential. Go ahead. And again. Okay. Next. There's another color or picture of the, this was actually very attractive. It looked pretty neat.
It almost looks pressed.
Pardon?
It looks pressed. Doesn't look
It does,
like it's...
but it's a grout in between the bricks. Go ahead, Cal.
Is it a grout that's like, it looks like it has granite or something in it too?
No,
or-
it's like a mortar.
Okay.
Go to the next one. This again, no, the next one. Again, I'm going to show you this being the one we showed you first. This is very identifiable. I would encourage you, if you get out there, you will miss it if you're driving down the street. So back to the memo. Thank you, Kathy. In 2009...
Oops, on that one.
I'm sorry.
So how does it deal with stains?
Hello.
And if you needed to do some patching, would you then have different colors in there?
It would, but in the 7 months that's been there, we didn't notice any of that occurring. I'm sure our opinion is that condition that you noticed there with that specialized treatment on Colorado Boulevard would last between 5 and 7 years before you would need any maintenance on it. It's a good product. We thought it was pretty nice.
Charlie, what kind of feedback do you want from council tonight?
Well, let me go through the 2009 program again. I show you Main Street, Court Place to Wrap at 275, Bellflower Drive in Beaumar South at 250, and East Powers. Then we'll also have some money from the CDBG program, the block grant, of $127.5 to use on Grant Street. And then you have the Tabor Fund money of $960. We're proposing a micro seal or slurry seal application on residential and collector streets throughout the city. I gave you the 2010-2013 list as just reference. We're not showing it, this is not in any order, it's just shown.
Does the 960 get every street?
No. No, we're close. But we feel that we will get about 50 to 60% of the streets that are in good condition resurfaced with that money. It'll accomplish a lot. An example is we would do all the streets in Trail Market. They're at a point right now where they should be resurfaced with this treatment, and we can do all the streets in Trail Market, plus talking about Southbridge, South Park, a whole lot of the area of the city that's been covered. If you turn over...
Charlie?
Yes.
Is this micro seal application the same as the slurry that's been used?
No, not exactly. It's been used by Englewood. They put it on Broadway. It worked very well. An example of a place I can give you is on Arapahoe Road over by South Glen, between Clarkson and Race. They used it, and it's been there for about 4 months and looks pretty good. We've seen some bleeding of oil coming through in one area, but not overall. But what you do, Joe, is you take a perfectly good street like Trailmark. We've done crack sealing, the streets are pothole free. You put this application, you're adding 5 to 10 years more life to the street. It's a great way to get the best bang for your buck. In our opinion, that's what the 960 should be spent on in 2009. I'm showing you some other items on the second page. There's $50,000 in bridge improvements, and we're proposing to do the bridge on the Highline Canal, the west side of the bridge, a very narrow sidewalk. If it's 3.5 feet, I'd be surprised. You cannot walk two abreast on that sidewalk. It's quite an expensive project, but again, it would be very worthwhile, and it's probably the highest need bridge repair we have in the city. The traffic signal program that Jim discussed earlier, storm drainage improvements as shown, primarily on Little Street, matching against urban drainage money, and sanitary sewer repairs. But going back primarily to the street rehabilitation program, in order for us to have Main Street complete by Western Welcome Week, we would like to have council give us direction on the street now, not necessarily the intersection treatment, because Councilman Taylor is not present and he's the one that suggested we look into this. But if you don't want me to do Main Street for us, if you want us to go somewhere else, I need to know pretty quick, because we would need to get Main Street done in May and June to assure us that we have no delays going into Western Welcome Week.
I move that we do Main Street by May.
Second.
Any discussion?
You move that we do it by May?
Yes.
Is that what you asked? You didn't ask that, did you?
That's what his motion is.
I know, but you...
We will do it as soon as we possibly can. We've got the engineering probably 90% complete. We would like to go to bid in January, get the contractor on board in February. I think Doug's motion can be accomplished.
I would do it April 1st, but that's...
But it wouldn't be, but it won't be finished by May. That's what the motion
give
would be
it-
saying.
By May, yeah, well, May is 31 days long, so I have a little bit of flexibility with his motion. I think
What Charlie's really talking about is if council had ideas about money going someplace else, we really need to talk about it now. I mean, because all of these will move forward, but certainly Main Street would be a priority to get the bids together, to get it out, and those kinds of things. So May, June, but certainly this would be the package that we would go with in 2009.
Does this include any of the Tabor money?
Tabor money is shown on the first page down below, about the middle, 2009 parentheses Tabor funds.
Okay.
If you wish us to proceed with that project, we're suggesting this kind of treatment, and literally it would cover all areas of the city, and we would probably be looking at applying this treatment on streets that have been built within the last 5 to 10 years, which are in perfectly good shape, but extend the life by another 5 to 10 years. In other words, we design our streets for a 20-year lifespan. We apply a micro seal, we can get anywhere from 25 to 30 years before they have to be resurfaced again, and then it would just be another micro seal treatment.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Council ready to vote? Raise your hands. It's unanimous. Great.
I'd like to make a motion.
Hang on, May 31st, 11:59.
If you're up and there at that moment, I'll work with you.
I'd like to make a motion that Charlie begins as soon as possible the micro seal application on residential and collector streets throughout the city with the Tabor funds.
Okay, so second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to do the micro seal. That's the last thing you need direction on, right?
I'd actually like to get contractors on board very early in the year so they're committed to us. We can time it, and I want to get them, anybody that's working in the downtown area, other Western Welcome Week event locations get done. We want to move very quickly on all this.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Great. I assume that any street built in the last 5 years doesn't include streets built in the last 6 months.
That is very true.
Okay.
Or streets built 30 years ago.
So I have a
I
question.
want to know if we'd be sealing our streets.
Question. In that, in one of the pictures that you showed us fairly near the end, the intersection had one of those stop marks,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And then it had white, very wide, I don't think I saw it in there, white, very wide walk marks.
Yes.
Little different than I've seen on
Yes.
on some that have those little skinny ones, right?
Right, we could do that.
So might you keep that one in the hopper too?
Yes, and I think you're raising a very fair point. In reality, you can take some of these and make slight improvements and not exceed the cost too much. Question is, if you want to go to a brick concrete treatment, you're talking high cost, very long construction period. If you're talking just striping, the cost is cheap. There's no disruption of traffic and business. So it will give you the whole spectrum. But again, without Councilman Taylor, I feel it's unfair to present that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, my own inclination is to not spend much money, but to have it look nice.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know what Jim wants in terms of spending money, but I know part of what he wants is something, well, it sounded like he wanted something nice looking.
If you decide you want some expensive intersection treatment, then the other streets, Bellflower Drive or Powers, you may have to take the $250,000 out of Bellflower and not do it and do Powers, or depending on what kind of treatment you want. We actually have 4 pedestrian crossings of Main Street: Prince, Nevada, Curtis, and the RTD crossing right at Sycamore. And so if you want to identify those as something unique, we'll give you a spectrum from the low end using striping or even that resin product, all the way up to saying remove it and put in brick pavers. And that'll be a council decision later. I'll tell you right now, again, as I said, Monday we start concrete removal and replacement on sidewalks, curb and gutter in downtown Littleton. We're working really close with the downtown merchants. We'll have an engineer down there 100% of the time during the construction, so that we are in touch with every business that might be slightly affected by this construction. We can move from one place to another to accommodate business interests. But if we are going to get all the work done in time, we have to start some of it now, and also the price was very good. And it looks like to us, if my official weather keeper, who is our street superintendent, is anywhere near accurate, we may not see snow until well after Thanksgiving, which will be a new record in Littleton. Or you can interpret it, for the last couple of weeks when it should have been snowing, we've done a heck of a great job.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it. Okay, next item up is the city manager's goals, performance and goals. And I emailed to all of you the draft that was came out of the committee after Tom Doherty had interviewed council members and department heads. He then distilled that into a draft. The committee, which is Peggy, John, and I, met. We had some modifications which he incorporated. That modified document is in front of all of you, which you've seen. So the goal tonight is to approve this or modify it to whatever form that we want it to be, and then we'll give it to the city manager, and hopefully we'll have his review next week, which would give him a week to look at whatever our final version of this is. So, are there any changes? suggested, or any objections to what we have now?
I think it's very thorough and very complete. I think it's a very good document.
I have one addition I'd like to put on. And I'm guessing it would go under the service delivery management section. And it's basically no scandals, no headlines. And, you know, for lack of anything else, I don't want to wake up and find that Mike Wallace in 60 Minutes is outside the city offices interviewing us.
It could be good news.
Not generally. And, you know, basically if everything else is happening right, then I guess that would be something that doesn't happen. But it's if everyone's following policy and employees are conducting themselves well, then you don't have police shootings, you don't have embezzlement, you don't have buttball, you don't have that kind of stuff. So I would like to propose that, I guess I'll do it as a motion because that way we can get it done with, that we add a section B or C to service delivery that says no scandals, no headlines, make sure the policies are adhered to and employees conduct themselves such that 60 Minutes and Mike Wallace doesn't show up. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
For discussion. Just seems to me like that is something you can't really predict. It would be something that you would like would never happen, but things do happen, and we don't know what they're going to be all the time. So
I agree with that completely. I think we have a number of items in here that are goals and objectives that may not be entirely under the city manager's control, but it's things that we want him to strive to do. And when we evaluate, I think we'd have to take that into account of, you know, how much ability he actually had to influence what happened. Because obviously nobody controls Mike Wallace.
Well, I think the ICMA Code of Ethics that we received, by email or something or other, fairly extensive and might, I think, take care of the underlying issues that you're raising with that. I thought it was an outstanding Code of Ethics.
Yeah, and as you said that, I realized that I did not forward that on to everybody. So you and I and John have seen that. I don't think the rest of the council has seen it.
I have it, but at least I think I do.
Yeah, I really think the Code of Ethics covers everything you just wanted to put in your motion, and it is specifically spelled out as under Section 7, integrity, and it adheres to the ICMA Code of Ethics and apply the same to all staff members and the organization. So I think it really includes, I mean, what you wanted to say is in this document.
Okay.
I mean, just as an example for some who don't have that, there's one of the guidelines that's implementing, I guess, some of the other things, says public confidence. Members should conduct themselves so as to maintain public confidence in their profession, their local government, and in their performance of the public trust. I mean, that's just one of these pieces that's in here. But anyway, I just think this is a very, very good document.
Okay. Any further discussion? Council ready to vote? All in favor? 2. All opposed? Everybody else? Okay. Motion loses with Doug and Tom on the losing end. All right. Any further changes to the document? right, then I guess it's, the final version is the draft that was presented, which means that you already know what we have. So this,
If I may, did you have any comments on the document, Jim?
The only comment I had, and I passed it back to Tom Daugherty, I mean, I think this is very comprehensive and very thoughtful. When I meet with you next week, I do think there will be a challenge in measuring some of this. So we could talk about some of the specifics, but, and I think you probably realize that.
and actually, we have no metrics in here at all.
Right.
Which we should attempt to put in next.
Yeah, so
next
that'll be the big area that I'll be talking about, because certainly this is very comprehensive and very thorough, but obviously it's something that's going to be, to what degree, was there progress or not progress, or what were the metrics?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'll be talking with you about next week.
Okay.
To clarify for me, I thought we were doing something else here too. Next week we are doing the evaluation.
Next week, we're doing two things. We're going to evaluate Mr. Woods for the performance for last year. We will get in our packet a salary survey, will we not, for what the prevailing salary rates are for other city managers in the metro area for cities. Like it's 17 or something that we survey. So we'll be doing two things next week. We'll be doing evaluation on Jim for the previous year, and then we will be going through this document with Jim and talking about what issues that he has and trying to come up with metrics for measuring it for the forthcoming year.
Okay, so we'll approve this next week?
No, we just approved this now.
No, we just voted against your motion. We didn't have a motion to approve this yet.
Okay.
Unless I got fuzzy in the brain.
Well, let's do that right now then.
Is that right? You made a motion to add something, but...
You're right. I asked if anybody had any changes. Nobody said anything, but that's not the same thing as a motion to approve, so...
So I move that we approve this performance planning for the city manager.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Peggy and seconded by Jose to approve the document as presented as the final form to give to the city manager that we will then modify next week. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. And it's unanimous. Now we have a formally approved. Thank you. Anything else on that? Okay, then I think that we are adjourning to our quick executive session.